And we are back here once again for the next podcast for Big Brother 28. This, of course, is week 4 with a little bit of week 5. And there's some stuff to talk about for sure. Safe to say, I talked about this when it came to last week that I was starting to get a little bit worried that we could be headed for a bit of a steamroll and that things were going to go in a really sort of boring direction. And what I will say is that the start of this week had me very worried. In fact, I was not really paying a lot of attention to the start of this week, but things really ramped up towards the end, and we had a very exciting finish that has fundamentally changed this entire game in a way that I can't even fully go into in this video because holy shit, there's just so much happening at this point. But anyways, like I said, very excited to discuss all of it. Of course, I am not here alone, though. I do have a guest with me, someone who actually hasn't been on my channel before, reached out, expressed interest. I talked about how I was trying to get more guests in here and things like that, offer different perspectives. And this was someone who specifically asked to be a part of this. And I was very excited that this person has not been on my channel before, but very excited to have her. It's Gaby. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fine.
How's it going? Yeah, it's great to have you. I know, like I said, you kind of asked to be a part of this. So I'll just start off right off the bat by asking you, the two questions I asked pretty much everybody, which is, what was your expectations going into the season? And then how has this season delivered for you overall?
I mean, not like it could get much worse than last season and the lack of gameplay.
Oh,
Yeah, like I used to hate the bets coming in, but I'm kind of glad they did because in particular, Angela and Dee are really forcing this cast to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I also thought it was going to be a steamroll, but then Wednesday comes along and things pick up.
Definitely. I'm still pretty 50-50 on the vets being here. I still think I will always have the same mentality of I wish that it was more like a 50-50 kind of split. I think that would have made for more exciting gameplay, but certainly things are turning around in a really good direction. So we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. I will say right now, when it comes to Sunday and Wednesday's episode, I have notes, but really Thursday is what we really want to talk about because, like I said, that's really when things do get juicy. But we start off here and we see that Lala is really devastated to see Jason go, but is kind of hopeful that she's going to stay off the block. We see that Kamu is thrilled that Jason is gone. He feels like this has only solidified his alliance better, and this has been like this perfect week for him. I don't know about that, but sure. We see Melody is pumped that Mallory won the blockbuster. She's not happy to see that her Jason plan fell through, but is hoping that this next HOH can go really well. I was definitely pulling for a Melody HOH at this point. I think as we all were, especially these episodes. I mean, you get a huge edit for Melody here. You can tell that they are really big fans of Melody, and you can really see them pushing it specifically in this episode. We see that Barrett's very happy that Mallory's still here, especially since the tool shed wandered gone. And if he had gone against it, it would have drawn a clear line in the sand. And so, he's kind of recognizing like where he's at this point. And we then see this conversation with Lala and Mallory and Taylor about how they really just need to lock in. Feels that Drew is someone that they could maybe get on their side, especially since he has repeatedly come to her about info that Haley has been saying. So Lala feels like there's a very good chance that, maybe Drew is somebody that could get pulled over. But at this point, that's not really the case. Well, I know, Gaby, you're a really big fan of Drew, right? Like Drew's like your favorite of the season from what I saw. How do you feel about the way he plays this week?
Like, I feel like he got a little sloppy and messy and let himself get caught playing all sides.
Yeah, I'm very, I think Drew is someone who has a ton of potential. The problem is that Drew is 22 years old and is very much just playing for in my opinion, just trying to rage bait people. Like, that's his game right now. He, like, I said this in the previous podcast, I'll say it again, like, his biggest issue, I would say, is that, like, he'll go to people and, like, say he's doing stuff, like, in a joking manner, but, like, they've kind of compared notes that it's not really him joking. So I think that Drew's someone that I really want to root for. I really want to think that he's, like, this great strategist, but he's really not. He's kind of just, like, this guy who's having a lot of fun, and it's great that he's having fun, but I don't think it's leading to amazing gameplay from him. So I'm kind of down on Drew after this week. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but yeah, certainly not the greatest person to pull in right now, because he's just probably going to leak it right to the vets. We see that Melody talks about how, well, Haley has been saying that she has insulted the way she speaks. She's insulted the way she speaks. She's insulted her body, and she's just a pain to live with, always making snarky comments. Like, she's always running her mouth about several people in the house. And like I said, you can tell that they are taking advantage of the fact that, like, there's this time capsule out there. This is the first week that, well, not yet, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we're gearing up for one of the first weeks where a vet can't win. You can tell they really want Melody to be in contention for that. They're a big Melody fan. They really push a lot. They give us a lot of great content with her. Gaby, how are you feeling about Melody so far?
I like her because I think she's a lot smarter than people give her credit for.
Oh, yeah.
She knows what's going on, but she's not always very vocal about sharing it.
Yeah, I like Melody a lot. I think, she had some pretty obvious errors like the first week of the game, and I've talked about this, where I think that she made a pretty big mistake in immediately trying to distance herself from Mallory, but she has very quickly recognized it, and I think she has her eyes open on, like, what she needs to do. My thing with Melody is she just needs to get into power. She needs those people on her side to really push for these things, because she has the right idea, but it almost feels like, and I've seen this comparison a lot, it's, someone like an America Lopez in Big Brother 25, where, like, she has the right idea. She knows what she needs to do. She just hasn't had the power to do it yet. But you can really tell that the producers like her a lot. They give her a really big edit in this episode, and she's one of the biggest highlights of the entire week, especially, again, the way that they are actually showing the things Haley is saying about her. They don't normally do this where, like, they show all the non-game related stuff that someone has said because they want to protect people's images. It does not seem like they have any interest in doing that with Haley. They will shit on her as much as they can, and honestly, good for them, because, I mean, it's good that people see the kind of person that Haley is. So, yeah, not a Haley fan if you can't tell, but
neither am I. So don't. I mean, there's no much all you want,
right? Like, there's not much to like at this point. So speaking of Haley, we see Angela talks with Chuk and Haley about how badly they need this next HOH, because the other side still has enough numbers to potentially solidify something, and also kind of lets them know if she wins HOH that she just wants to backdoor Drew right then and there. And I want to hear your opinion on this, Gaby, because I've heard many conflicting opinions here. Some people have said that they think it's good that Angela is targeting Drew. It's good that she kind of sees him in that way. Others feel like it's too early. What's your verdict on Angela's sort of paranoia towards?
I think
towards
it's definitely too early, because if you remember the last time she played how she was with Quinn, I see a lot of that happening again with Drew.
Yeah,
he's not ready to turn on her yet, but she's unnecessarily going to cause him to sooner because of her paranoia.
Yeah, I think for me, again, I've said it before, I think Angela has the right idea in, like, this is the person you need to, like, frame for stuff in your alliance, where, like, you can kind of pin everything on Drew. I just feel like going for him now, it's just too early to do that. And it really seemed like it was going to be a massive mistake to target Drew as early as, especially Angela.
It was, especially because, like, he's not going to go after the vets.
Yeah.
Like, the vets are fine with him. He's going to go after Kamu, Chuk, and Haley.
Right, and the thing is, they're not aware of that. So, like, I'll give them that like, they're not certain that he's going in that direction, but he is going in that direction. So, like, yeah, it's stupid in my opinion. Like, again, I think it's the right idea to be wary of Drew, but to outright target him this early, that just seems a little silly to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. We see Haley talks about how Drew and Barrett have constantly been waffling from one side to the other. So they're both on her radar at this point. And Devens is also really getting frustrated with Drew. And we talked about this, in the last video. He had this conversation with Drew about how he wanted to try to get him to keep Mallory. And Devens is now really starting to see him as this liability of sorts. He's unsure if he can really count on him. So things are really not looking great for Drew if the Raw in person wins. But we do get to this HOH comp, and I was very happy that they brought this back so early on. It is, in fact, 1880s themed, and it is a competition similar to the one that Rachel won last season, where basically you are hiding in a room. If you are the person that is caught in the room, you are eliminated from the challenge. Gaby, what do you think of this comp? Because I really enjoyed this one quite a bit.
I like it.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to think where you want to hide and where people are least likely to look.
Yeah, I'm glad to see a lot of the really cool stuff that they did in Big Brother 27 has carried over here. One of the things I praised about Big Brother 27 is that they were finding more sort of creative ways to do comps like this that aren't specifically catered towards, the more physical type players. And I think that this is absolutely the way to do it. I really enjoyed this a lot. I think we get a lot of interesting moments here. The biggest one to talk about, of course, is the fact that it does come down to Yash and Haley. And we see that Haley is unfortunately, while we do have a very interesting comp to watch, unfortunately, the results is not the most exciting because Haley wins the next HOH. And I don't know about you, Gaby, but I stayed up on that Thursday to see who won HOH. I saw Haley won. I turned my phone off and went to bed.
Yeah, I was not excited.
That was very much
it's going to be a repeat of Kamu's HOH.
Exactly. That was entirely my reaction. I even said on the last video that if someone in Toolshed wins HOH, the season might just be over. I don't know if it's going to recover from here because historically, when you have the same people winning in Alliance over and over again, most of the time it just continues. There have been times where you get lucky with say what happened Grateful in Big Brother 21, where that whole thing gets blown up and things like that. But the worst example is Big Brother 22, where you had the same 4 people winning, and then Christmas won, and then Nicole won, and then Cody won again, and then Enzo won again. It was just constant. And so I was really worried that that's what we were headed for here. And it really did feel like this was a sign of what was to come. So I will be honest, in terms of feeds, I did not really pay attention to what was going on this week because I just simply didn't care. I thought, okay, Haley won, therefore things are just going to be kind of boring here. So we do see that right off the bat, she really does want to try to get out a competitor that has been skating by and flying under the radar, and that's kind of her ultimate goal here. Yash is hopeful that he's going to be fine. The two of them did kind of have, kind of exchange this deal where they wouldn't put each other up if the other one won. So he's really hoping that she sticks true to that. And you get this great moment from Melody where she talks about it she would rather have Jack the Ripper kill her himself than Haley winning HOH. So again, not too many people thrilled that Haley won. Neither are we thrilled that Haley won. And immediately we see, though, right off the bat, that this is not really going to be Kamu's HOH, because the one thing I unfortunately do have to give Kamu is that he actually does have a pretty decent social game. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to get himself out of situations. He knows how to make people feel good with him. Haley just says what's on her mind. She has zero filter. She doesn't know how to sugarcoat anything. And immediately you see that it's going to be a big problem for her, because there's this moment with Taylor where basically what ends up happening is, Haley, there's a mention of what kind of candy Haley's going to have. Taylor mentions it's going to be sugar-free candy, and Haley takes massive offense to this because everything offends Haley. The smallest thing could offend Haley. You could tell Haley that she dropped a crumb on the floor and she would go off on you. Like, that's just the kind of person that Haley is. And so you immediately see that this is not really going to be a very good HOH for Haley. And pretty safe to say she's going to have some massive HOH-itis here. We see that Devens is thrilled he's not going to have to use his Diamond POV this week. And Mallory is feeling like there's a good chance that she can go up because she's gone up so often. Why wouldn't she go up again? And I think a lot of people suspected that that's what was going to happen when Haley initially won here. So let's go a bit, though, into some of Haley's talks with some people here. We see Devens has a talk with her. And immediately we see that Haley is annoyed at Taylor for basically no reason other than this candy thing. It made her very uncomfortable. She feels like there's been all these like snide comments directed at her when she isn't around or like a couple feet away. And she thinks now that she's going to have to give them something to talk about because, I mean, Gaby, you have to understand, like, she's had such a hard 4 weeks, you know? It's not like she's been, like, in power or anything, or she's been in, like, a great position where, like, she's never touched the block. You know, she's definitely not had the right people in her corner or anything like that. Like, no, she's been killing it. You know, she's been in such a terrible spot, you know, such a huge target week after week. Give me a fucking break. Seriously. Like,
I love the sarcasm there.
This is the pure definition of like what happens when you are in power and you don't know how to handle it. Like, the littlest thing is going to piss you off because of the fact that you believe you have this entitlement over everyone else, because of the fact that you have been sort of untouchable. Any sort of grievance that someone has with you, you can't see it as anything more than a personal attack. You can't see it as anything more than just this person immediately trying to take shots at you, when in reality, like, the things that people are mad at Haley about are completely justified why they're mad at Haley for, and she never once tries to understand any of it. Gaby, what did you think of this whole show that Haley put on?
She definitely lacks the awareness to read the room.
Oh yeah.
And she's falling into the trap of getting too comfortable because her side has always had the power.
Yeah,
like on Big Brother, never feel like you're untouchable.
Exactly. I think the massive mistake that Haley makes this week is realizing that, like, you are HOH just for this week. Like, the way that she acts, it's very much like that sort of mentality where she feels like she's going to be in this position forever, but you have to recognize that, like, you're only going to be in this position for a few days. There's only really 4 days that people have to listen to you. Once that's over, like, people don't really have to if they don't want to. And Haley does absolutely nothing to try to, you know, improve her positioning with this HOH. She only hurts her positioning with the way she's going about it, going as far as to, for the first time in a long time, we get a segment of like her HOH room, not because they want us to see her HOH room, because they want us to see again just how adamant Haley is on making everyone feel guilty that they've said things about her. She talks about the fact that her name's been dragged through the mud and that if they've been talking shit about her, they can leave and things like that. And, you know, Melody basically clocks the fact that this is hilarious because half the house has been saying things about Haley. And again, let's think about how Haley has played this game. What have people mainly been upset about? It's been the fact that Haley has jumped into every single conversation and made it about herself and talked about things that are completely irrelevant. And again, that's not saying that's not this personal attack. This is like something they've noticed that Haley has been doing. People have said to her that, like, you know, maybe she should be wary of that, and she just hasn't done anything about it. So again, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous the way she decides to go about all this. We see Taylor is going to Lala, and she's really worried because she feels like, you know, she's playing for two people. She wants to kind of help Lala campaign by bringing up how Melody has been saying stuff about Haley. And I thought this was a really good move from Taylor. Obviously, I don't necessarily want Melody to go, but I think Taylor recognizes, like, if I'm constantly in this position, the way that I sort of rise up through it is by unfortunately having to throw people that I'm not quite as linked with that are in a similar position to me under the bus. And so I think it was smart for Taylor to do this. It's just, again, to Haley, who already has this sort of, hatred towards Taylor for virtually no reason. So, yeah, I think overall, I think Taylor did the right thing here. We see Lala's talking with some of Toolshed. She brings up how there have been conversations between Mallory and Melody and kind of pushes this idea that they are specifically coming for Haley and things like that. And Haley's actually not surprised with how combative Melody has been. She thinks that, okay, this should absolutely be a target of mine. I need to get Melody out of here. But she also isn't really feeling better with Lala after this conversation. She feels like she's happy she gave her this information, but you could see that Lala is not necessarily in a great spot after this. In fact, I think a lot of people thought that Lala could potentially be a renom after this conversation. But again, this is just Haley. Like, at the end of the day, like, I think Lala did the right thing here in, again, trying to give her this info. It's just Haley's not receptive to it because she has this perception of Lala that's just not going away. So, again, just very stubborn, the way that she goes about this, and just very infuriating to watch her gameplay overall. Also, hi, Jordan. Great to see you. Yeah, that's not the Jordan you think it is, by the way. That's my friend Jordan. Yeah. So, all right. So we go into the BB time capsule here, and this was a big deal, Gaby, because the one thing we do have to mention that was going on the feeds that they did not show in the episode is what Drew was doing this entire time. For the past, 3 days before the Sunday episode had aired, Drew was giving very cryptic hints that he won the coin of destiny and that he was potentially going to use it, but he was doing it in a way that was very Drew, where it's well, if I won the coin of destiny, that'd be really funny. And maybe I'd use it. I don't know if I'd use it this HOH, but maybe I'd use it at some point. And maybe if I were to play it, it'd be really funny if I were to do that. And, he would go to, Barrett and say something like, well, if I won the coin of destiny, I don't know if I'd play it right away. I might just, I might just do it on myself. If I'm HOH, I might just wait to play it on myself and, see what would happen there. Alarm bells were obviously ringing through everyone's head, because what the fuck do you mean you have the coin of destiny and you're going to wait until your HOH to then play it on yourself and sabotage your own HOH? That generally sounds like the most brain rot type strategy I've ever seen. Turns out all of that was for nothing, because we get to the actual time capsule and D is the one who gets the power. And honestly, generally impressed by the way that, one, the show was able to cover this up, but also the fact that Dee literally didn't tell anybody about this, that she ended up receiving the power. Gaby, I do want to hear your thoughts, though, before we get into this, though. What do you think of the BB time capsule as a twist overall, and sort of the implementation of it?
I mean, I think it's easy to break and
yeah.
I'm not going to say rig, but it's easy for production to kind of give the people they want a better chance to get an advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
That one can be easily broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was given that D was going to win it because the vets come into the show with a massive fan base, so they're already in an advantage.
Yeah, I think
not a fan of any twist where it involves the people who already have the pre-existing fan bases getting it in massive advantages like that.
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to when it comes to this, when it comes to the time capsule as a twist, I don't think it's a bad twist. I've been saying, I think it was introduced way too early into the season because of the fact that this is always what was going to happen. Angela was going to win, and then Devens was going to win, and then D was going to win. There was just no possibility it wasn't going to be a combination of those three. It didn't matter which combination, but the three of them were always going to get it in some capacity. And so for me, I really wish they would have just waited to do this later on in the season. I think it would have been so much more beneficial if they had done that. So Yeah, I ultimately think that though it was a I think that ultimately though it was a fine idea in concept, it very much comes across as like one of those things where people are going to think about like, what if vets weren't here? Would this twist have even been a thing, you know? So it's just, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm glad that we're now at a point where people that are not vets are going to start winning this. But I mean, since we now know what's happened when a non-vet wins, it makes me even more suspicious as to like how this was ultimately designed. So yeah, I just think overall there were other ways for them to go about this. I think the way they did things with Rachel last season, that's the way they should be doing it when it comes to returnees, where like you throw them in the house, you don't really give them anything to work with. They kind of just have to play the game on their own. To then have Dee, Devens, and Angela come into the game, only one of them can win HOH. Then you introduce this twist. It just doesn't feel correct to me. It really just feels like you are tipping the scales too much in the vets' favor, whereas I feel like the game should be harder for them because they've already played and they've already proven themselves. And I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of how this went. Again, though, got to give the credit to Dee. She does get this BB bride power. She intends to tell nobody about it and did so. We didn't hear anything about it on the feeds because of the fact that she didn't even tell Devens about it. So again, I will give her the credit there. There's even a segment later on in the Wednesday episode where like Devens is waiting for her to give a signal. She doesn't give him the signal, and she kind of wants to try to separate her game from his. I think it's a fine idea to like not tell him about the power. I think if you're going to tell anyone, it is fine to tell Devens, but also a lot of the time it is kind of good to just keep it to yourself. And something like the BB bribe where you can literally just, basically convince someone to do anything. I think that's kind of where I'm at with that. So yeah, overall, I don't know.
It was smart to tell. It was smart of Dee because
definitely,
especially after what just happened to her on Survivor, where she got burned because she accidentally spilled the information to Emily, and then Emily leaked it to everyone.
Yeah.
So I think she was cautious of that happening a second time.
Yeah, I think exactly like that's the best way to describe it. It's very much an overcorrection thing. I agree with you, Noah.
I agree.
Like they know that the White Locust failed, and they were trying to do what they could to implement this to like save the vets, but it's like the reason people were upset about White Locust wasn't just because Rachel left. It was because of the fact that the twist itself was a terrible one. Like it had nothing to do with it had to do with Rachel leaving. I think that definitely played a massive role, but I think many people, myself included, even said like if it had been like someone that wasn't as well liked that season, it really wouldn't have changed my perception of the twist overall. So again, I think there were just so many other ways for them to go about this. I think it's cool that Dee has this power and is keeping it to herself. But the fact it's happening so early on, and the fact that only the vets were really ever had a chance of getting it this first 3 weeks, it just is really frustrating. And this was one of the reasons. And the other big reason why I really don't like this power in particular is that this power is good for the rest of the season. There is no expiration date for this power. Dee can do this whenever she wants. And to me, like, that is the definition of just super overpowered advantage. She goes to people like later on in the week and says like, oh, it's not that great of a power. I think it's an amazing power because it's literally good till the entire season. So yeah, I don't know. It's just very frustrating.
Yeah, because even with Devens, you have it like only good for the first 6 weeks. So so Diamond Power Veto, well, it can be overpowered. It has an expiration date and it's one and done. Yeah. But Dee can use it whenever she wants.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think ultimately the way it went about in the vets' favor, I'm just not really a huge fan of. But we do see Melody. She goes to Haley and talks to her about how she knows that they don't talk much. She kind of figures that she's going up, and she doesn't try to bullshit Haley here. She tells her straight up, like, if I was to win HOH, I was putting you up, because she knows that she's going up. Haley's made it no secret that she's targeting Melody here. So I actually think it's fine that she just like, let me just rip the Band-Aid off. I know you're targeting me. I know you're coming after me. Like, Haley tells her that a conversation was leaked about her. Like, Haley does nothing to make Melody feel like I have you in my corner, does nothing to make her feel like I'm not going to put you on the block. And I think, on one hand, it's good to not bullshit people, but Haley's going too far in the other direction where, like, she's literally telling Melody that, like, I knew you were coming after me and all this stuff. And Haley asks her who she put up. She says that it would be, Haley, she talks about how rough the last 3 weeks have been, which Melody's very angered by because, again, just how easy things have been for her. Talks about how, she feels like she's just very entitled for what she's saying. Again, I get that you're upset with Melody, but again, I think this is Haley's chance to kind of smooth things over with her, and she's not even trying to do that. And so, again, it's just another big failure of Haley's HOH for me. So, okay, we see Barrett talks with her, and she brings up how there was talk that he was trying to flip the sides, and immediately Barrett's like, no, I would never do that, even though Barrett's been thinking of doing that. He doesn't need Haley to know that. And so he says he does see Mallory as one of his best friends in the house. He wouldn't have, even though there was a chance to keep her if others had approached him. So he wasn't trying to flip the vote and would have taken her out if he had to. She does bring up how eventually there's going to be no girls left if he looks at the board, and that one has to stay this week. And I get what she's trying to do, where she's trying to tell him that she's a little bit worried, but to basically say I need you to be the pawn and things like that, you're basically saying to Barrett you're not as important in this alliance. It's fully confirming to him what he already knew, that he's kind of at the bottom of the tool shed. He's very annoyed by this conversation. So just another big failure from Haley. I think she really botched this interaction with him. And she has the same exact conversation with Drew here about how, look, they're out of options. And Drew's like, no, we're not. There's definitely other directions you can go. Drew kind of knows that it's going to be him based on the red corner, and that he's annoyed that she won't just trust him when they're supposed to be in an alliance together and things like that. So again, just really bad from Haley. Gaby, how do you feel Haley handled these conversations?
Not well at all.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Because one thing you don't want to do is make people confirm that they're at the bottom of your alliance and they're extendable to you.
Mm-hmm.
With Haley straight up telling Barrett and Drew that she would like one of them to be pawns. They know they're not in a good position with her, and it just gives them more incentive to flip on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that you are putting Barrett up as you're thinking of potentially putting him up as a pawn and things like that. But there was another way I think she could have gone about this discussion. You need to lead with this is the person that's my target. I'm putting you up. I don't want you to go necessarily, but I just feel like you have a chance of beating this person. But again, you can't really use that for Barrett and Drew because they haven't really had a chance to fully prove themselves. So again, I think all the logic was just very faulty here on Haley's end. So overall, just wasn't really that great. So we get to the nomination ceremony, and ultimately she does decide to put up Melody, Taylor, and Drew. And she tells them straight up, I'm not here for your bullshit or games. And we can see that all of them are very annoyed with her making this decision. Melody is feeling like Haley is not justified for her reasonings with how little she's had to worry. We see Taylor feels that Haley's on this power trip and that she's just going to kind of let her have it. And Drew feels that this was really dumb. And now he's even more motivated to go after her. Because remember, Drew and Barrett were already thinking about targeting red corner. This was already something that they had discussed. They already wanted to put those three up. All this does is increase their incentive to do that. So yeah, just really frustrating overall. So we go to Wednesday's episode here, and we see that Haley wants Taylor to be her target because she has no real alliance. So it's easy to kind of get her out in her mind, which again, I don't think we talked about this either. The episode does not spend enough time on the fact that Haley wanted Taylor out and thought Taylor would be a good target and thought people would go in that direction. When, let's be real with ourselves here, if Taylor's against Drew, Drew's going to leave. If Taylor's against Melody, Melody's going to leave. Taylor is not looked at in that way where Taylor's going to be, there just isn't numbers to take out Taylor. Like, it just isn't going to work out. So again, the fact that Haley was just so adamant that, oh, I can do this. Again, it's the pure definition of just HOH-itis and feeling like you're constantly in power and feeling like you're untouchable in the house, which is exactly how Haley is.
He doesn't get that. HOH does not get a vote. They ultimately have no say on who leaves. If the majority doesn't want to do something, they're not going to do it. Regardless of what Haley wants.
100%. So basically, we see Melody and Mallory are both distraught at how the week has gone, understandably, and Lyric is kind of feeling like she needs to kind of pivot over a bit. And look, I've given Lyric her flowers in the past couple weeks that I think it's good that Lyric has shown to be adaptable, that she's willing to kind of work her way in with the other side, kind of flirt with whoever she needs to in order to protect herself. I think that's all really good. You know, if you're going to go to Kamu and you're going to go to Chuk and you're going to try to make them feel as good with you as possible, I think all of that's really great. The problem is that she takes it a bit too far this week, where not only does she go over to Haley and, you know, talks to Kamu about how she really wants to work with him and Haley and Chuk moving forward, but that she basically says that, like, hey, I'm good with Mallory and Melody. I really like them a lot, but I kind of see the writing on the wall. She feels like she can't be attached to the fight, that she isn't going to win. So she wants to kind of move over to the red corner, and Kamu is receptive to this conversation at first. He actually thinks that maybe this is pretty good. He actually wants to try to put in a good word with Haley. But this does not really go over well with Haley, because Haley instead is seeing this as, something that maybe, he tries to pitch it as like maybe Drew should just be the target instead, because of what's going on. He kind of trusts that he thinks Lyric would be like a really good replacement, and Haley's not down for this at all, because it very much kind of seems like Kamu's moving towards that direction, and instead now Haley is thinking about potentially targeting Lyric as a result of this. And Gaby, how do you feel about Lyric's gameplay this season?
I don't know, because I think both Lyric and Haley messed up there. Yeah. Haley, I gotta wonder if part of that wasn't just jealous, that she wanted that there was another girl competing for Kamu's attention. Mm-hmm. And we saw some of that on the Unlocked episode on Friday, that in that secret scene with her and Angela, that Haley was jealous of Lyric and Angela picked up on it. And Lyric also being so quick to throw her allies under the bus, that's definitely suspicious, because, like,
right. Yeah.
She do the same to Haley.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem I have, is that, like, again, I think that Lyric had the right idea in, like, I'm going to try to pivot my game a bit. I'm going to try to get in with Kamu and Chuk. But to go as far as to basically say, like, oh, Mallory's targeting you and things like that, it just was never going to work out for Lyric in the way that she hoped it would. So overall, I'm pretty disappointed by her gameplay this week, because I think she had the right strategy in mind. She just went about it completely the wrong way. And in my opinion, I think Lyric just kind of showed, like, why she can't be trustworthy. I think that's the problem here, is, like, if you're so quick to throw, and this is the one time I'll give Haley credit this week, is, like, Haley recognizes that, like, what Lyric is doing, where it's like, if you're going to throw Mallory and Melody out so early on, how do I know you're not going to do the same to me if we decided to work with you? So overall, I just think that Lyric went about this completely the wrong way, but we'll talk a little bit more about this later when we get to her overall choices here. We see that Angela and Haley talk with Taylor a bit, and Taylor asks Haley why she was put up. Haley tells her how uncomfortable last week was, including how she was the only one laughing while Jason banged the teapot in her face. And Taylor straight up tells her that that's ridiculous, and she's very offended for that reason. She tries to defend herself, but Haley kind of sees it as just her being guilty by association. Again, this is a very small thing. This is nothing. Like, most people found what Jason did funny. Taylor was just the only one who wasn't trying to hide it. And I don't think Taylor is at fault for that. I think Taylor just didn't really care, because she saw it as Jason's doing this I don't really care that he's doing this. I think it's funny what he's doing. It's not going to affect me that much. But again, the smallest thing to Haley is going to set her off. So yeah, again, just ridiculous what Haley's doing here. Because again, Taylor even says that she still finds the whole thing funny. And again, I just, it's ridiculous that she was trying to target Taylor in the way that she was. But Taylor goes to Lala and she's crying about this and how she feels like she's a target for really no reason, and that she's really how mad she is. And Lala feels like Haley really needs to be knocked down a peg because she is her high horse and she's kind of hoping that she can stick around long enough to take out Haley and behead her and really just make sure that she goes, which is very satisfying considering what may or may not be happening this week. I thought this was a great line from Lala here. So only other thing to talk about before we get to the actual veto pickings is that we do get this moment with Drew, and he's talking with Devens about how he feels like putting him up is not really a good thing because now if he wins, it's only a good idea for him to return the favor. Again, Devens is like very, very concerned about Drew at this point, feels like he's a liability, and the target is slowly shifting to Drew at this point. Toolshed feels like, okay, maybe he was initially a pawn, but now it kind of feels like maybe we should just outright target him. He's going to hurt them the most. He's running around and he's worried about what's going to happen. You know, Dee's worried what could happen if Drew won veto or something like that. Angela feels like he would just blow up the whole thing. So it really does seem like things are not looking great for Drew at this point. That Drew could very well be a major target here. We do see Diaz's conversation with Barrett a bit and tells him straight up that like things are shifting towards Drew. Like Drew could very well be the target here. And he feels like Barrett's now worried he could potentially go up in Drew's place. I think a lot of people were fearful that that might be what was going to happen. But we get to the veto draw here and we see Chuk and Mallory are chosen to play, and was very interested to see what would have happened. Was kind of hoping Mallory was going to win this veto because I was interested to see what she was going to do in the scenario that, you know, Melody was taken off the block and things like that. What would Haley have done in that scenario? But we get to the actual veto comp, and once again, it's another comp that I was very happy to see come back from last season. It was the comp where essentially everyone has to poison a drink. You have to convince the other person to drink the poison drink and things like that. I thought this was great fun to watch. I will say, I slightly enjoyed the way they did it more last season. I thought it was more theatrical. I thought it was more fun to watch. This one I still really enjoyed. I'm happy to see this comp come back, but I still had a really good time. But Gaby, what did you think of this veto comp overall?
I love this comp because
yeah,
you know, just like the HOH comp, it's making it not as stacked for the physical players.
Yeah.
This one's all about strategy and how well you can bluff.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoy it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun to watch, especially like, you know, seeing people deceived into, you know, drinking the cup and things. I also like the idea that like you have you have multiple lives and, you know, you have to try to get out the other person. I thought it was really fun to watch overall. And you could see that people like Yash like really got into the whole colonial vibe of it all, which I thought was a lot of fun. So we get to the veto here. It does come down to Chuk and Taylor ultimately wins the veto. And this was the point where, you know, I saw this happen. I was like, okay, maybe things are going to get a bit more interesting here. With Taylor winning the veto, that's Haley's target. That's the person Haley wants out the most. That's the person she's the most annoyed with besides Melody. Let's see what can happen here. I really wanted to see Haley spiral. I thought that could maybe lead to a potentially more exciting week. And we see right off the bat, Haley's not happy about this at all. She really was hoping that Taylor was not going to win the veto. She was really hoping that things could maybe go in a different direction. And we see immediately that Haley tells her alliance, like, look, it's going to have to be Lyric. Like, there's no other option here. It's got to be Lyric. And this is where we see some potential cracks in this alliance, which, you know, we talked about this. This was like the one thing that was keeping me hopeful when it came to the tool shed, is that there was actually a lot of cracks in this alliance. And we do kind of finally get to see that here when it comes to Kamu and Haley, because they are not at all on the same page about this. Kamu feels like Haley should be looking out for the alliance. Like, hey, Lyric wants to work with us. Lyric is somebody that has said that she would be good with us. I think we should just be focusing on that. Haley's looking at it from a more selfish perspective where it's like, I know you're good with Lyric. I know she likes you. That's the only reason that you want her to stay, and so therefore she should go up in my place and things like that. And again, this was very fun to watch because it's really the first time we've seen any sort of cracks in this alliance. Gaby, do you ultimately think it was the right idea for Haley to potentially put up Lyric here?
Personally, I would have put up Mallory because she was tied stronger to Melody and was less likely to flip. Because Mallory would not, Melody, I don't know if they would have flipped on each other, but Lyric was going to break away from that group eventually.
Yeah, I just feel like, again, I get Kamu's perspective where it's like Mallory has made it no secret that she's going after that side. And not that Lyric has said that, but I think that Mallory probably is the better option here. I think the concern with Mallory is that she probably wins Blockbuster if you do that, because she's done that before. And I think that's kind of the concern with Mallory here. But I do think Kamu had the right idea where it's like, well, Mallory has said that she's going to go after us. Like, she's the more dangerous player. She's capable of winning things. Yes, Lyric has won a veto, but Lyric has said she wants to work with us. So I kind of see both perspectives where it's like, you know, Lyric is somebody that just betrayed her allies. She could very well do that to us, but also like Lyric has, you have that in with her. Maybe you just pull her in. I was saying this with like Melody last week, that they should maybe just want to pull Melody in, and that's not what they were trying to do. So I don't know. I think that ultimately, I kind of get where Haley was coming from, but her logic was not correct here. So yeah, I think, you know, there's this conversation that Lyric then has with Mallory, and this is really where Lyric does herself in, where Mallory straight up tells her, you know, what is, you know, basically that, you know, Melody feels Lyric has a higher chance of winning the Blockbuster, and that if it was her versus Drew, she kind of feels good in that situation. We see Mallory even talks about how, you know, she's worried about what could be happening today, that she could potentially be going up in that scenario. And so Lyric goes right to Haley and gives her this information that Mallory gave her about the fact that she would potentially be putting up Kamu and Chuk. And it does the opposite of what Lyric is hoping, because when Haley sees her do this, she kind of sees it as, okay, if you're going to do this to your friends so quickly, how do I know you're not going to do this to me? She does keep in mind what, you know, she said, but the fact that Rome and Jason aren't here anymore, she feels like that's the only reason that Lyric is doing this. And it made it pretty clear that at this point, Lyric was probably going to be the one to go on the block. And that's exactly what happens. We see Taylor use the veto on herself. Haley then renoms Lyric in her spot. And again, I really do think Lyric kind of did this to herself here. The one thing I will give Lyric that they don't really show in the episode is that Lyric recognizes that she was in the wrong for this. She recognizes right away that, like, I messed up. I should have definitely, you know, talked more to, you know, to Mallory about this. I should not have immediately just thrown her under the bus. And I think that that was definitely a mistake on her end, but the damage is already done. Like, you can't really undo what you did. And I think that's really Lyric's problem here, is that she had this strategy. She tried pivoting, and I think she just tried a little too hard to do so. Whereas if she had taken those steps to get herself there, I think it could have happened a lot more organically. So overall, I mean, I don't really think Lyric is anyone to blame but herself for this. So that's my perspective. But of course, let's get to the juicy stuff. We got through Thursday, we got through Sunday, we got through Wednesday. Let's talk about Thursday's episode, Gaby, because my God, I mean, if you want to talk about the kind of moment that gives us renewed faith in the season, look no further than what happens in this episode, because we see immediately that Melody is getting pretty fed up with Lyric after this week. She kind of has this conversation about how she feels like, you know, she kind of saw through how quickly she threw them under the bus, and she's kind of starting to get a little bit weary of her, and that's not really looking great for Lyric. But the other big thing to talk about here is the fact that you have Drew still on the block, and it seems like, you know, Drew is somebody that was potentially going to be a massive target this week. Drew was really kind of doing himself in. In fact, I thought Drew was not really playing this week very well because Drew did not seem to come to the realization that he was the target this week. Barrett even told him that, and Drew kind of denied it. But D recognizes in this moment that, wait a minute, why am I just letting Drew go? Drew is actually a very good shield for me. I can kind of keep him around because I feel like, you know, he is somebody that would be really good on my side. She realizes like her, Angela, and Devens pretty much control what happens this week, no matter what. Even if Haley wants them to do this, they don't necessarily have to do it. Yeah, Gaby, what did you think of this shift with Drew?
I think it was a good move on Dee's part because she recognizes that, hey, Devens, Angela, and I are still good if Drew stays because he's not going to come for us.
Yeah,
and he can do our dirty work of taking out Kamu, Chuk, and Haley.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I think when it comes to, you know, I think when it comes to Drew, I think, and this is what I've been saying, like, I think targeting Drew, I think recognizing Drew as a threat is fine, but targeting him so early on, you're taking away such a good shield for you. Drew is the person who, when everything gets exposed in your alliance, you just pin everything on him on. And at that point, you know, you've gathered enough evidence, you've rallied the troops against him to where he can actually go in that moment. But you shouldn't do that until like the Matt Hoffman spot. That's where Drew should go, is like somewhere in like the, you know, 7 to 8 range. I think that's the perfect spot for Drew to go. Taking him out so early on, it just limits numbers here because Drew is loyal to D, Angela, and Devens. He had no intention on going after the vets. He is going to go after Red Corner, but he has no intention of going after specifically D, Angela, and Devens. So I think it's good that ultimately, you know, she kind of recognizes here, like, wait, we have an opportunity in potentially saving him. And, you know, a lot of people talked about this. We've seen this happen on Big Brother before. It almost happened with Zach Rance in Big Brother 16, almost happened with Austin in Big Brother 17. And good players like D are the ones who come to that realization that, like, we're making a mistake in potentially going for Drew here. But the other big thing to consider is what happens in a Melody and Lyric scenario. Is there a possibility that Melody and Lyric could potentially, is there benefit in keeping Melody around potentially instead of Lyric, who is kind of with the Red Corner at that point? That seemed a little bit less likely. It seemed more like, okay, now if Drew's on the block, Drew is going to be saved, whereas Melody is still going to potentially go until we get to the vote, because we get to the blockbuster here. And, you know, the big thing about this throughout the entire week is all the conversation of Lyric potentially being the person that was, you know, going to go. Seemed like it was all for naught because Lyric was probably just going to win the blockbuster anyway. But we get to the blockbuster, which for some reason is fucking Paw Patrol themed. I thought it was so funny how
they were into the movie. Got to do shameless promos.
Especially the fact that Julie was acting like this was like this big film that like the target audience would care about. Everyone's so excited for Paw Patrol. It's like, okay, tell me more about how Paramount is paying you to talk about this movie. Like, I don't know if you watched the feeds at all that day, Gaby, on Thursday. They literally kept like showing like bumpers for like Paw Patrol as the feeds were going. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. The most like blatant product placement I've really seen in Big Brother in a long time. You could tell like how badly they just did not care about this movie. And I saw people tweet about the fact that like they literally showed an ad for Paw Patrol before they did the blockbuster, which is even more ridiculous to me. Yeah, so we get to the actual blockbuster here, and Drew is the one to win. After all the conversation of Drew potentially being the target, Drew wins the blockbuster, and this is it. This is where it's like, okay, can something potentially happen here between Melody and Lyric? Is there a possibility that things maybe go in a different direction? And ultimately you get to the results, and you know, we get to the votes here. We're not really sure what direction it's going to head in. We get some pleas from Melody and Lyric. It kind of feels like at this point, Melody is thinking that she's on her way out. She was actually crying a lot before the eviction because she kind of felt like she was just done and there wasn't really anything that she could do. Whereas I feel like Lyric had a little bit more hope that she was going to stick around. But we get to the votes and Lyric ends up going because of the fact that at the 11th hour, and I'll back you up a bit as to like what happened here. Basically, Dee not only saw the benefit in keeping Drew around, but also saw the benefit in keeping Melody around, but she didn't really see the benefit of doing so until literally 3 hours before the eviction. And for some reason, Drew, Devens, and Angela thought this was like such a good plan that they completely blindsided red corner here. Haley, Kamu, and Chuk are completely left out of this vote. Haley is like flabbergasted. There's that great image going around of her just like so shocked as to what happened. Kamu is like, really upset. Chuk is so confused. Gaby, what did you think of this moment? Because to me, I feel like this turned the whole season around.
Yeah, I feel like this saves it from being a steamroll because because after weeks of like voting with the House, doing what the HOH wants, we finally got a blindside.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, this is the kind of thing that I think we always hope for, where it's like, it seemed like we were potentially going to have this steamroll of sorts. It seemed like maybe things were going to head in a very obvious direction. And then here comes Dee, who, if you want my honest opinion, I think Dee was just bored. I really think Dee was just bored. I think Dee saw this as like, I kind of want to shake things up here. Do I think it was the right idea to like leave Kamu, Chuk, and Haley out of this? I really don't. I think you could have honestly pulled in at least Kamu. Maybe you don't get Chuk, but you could have at least pulled in Kamu, and maybe there was potential. You just blindside Haley. I think that would have maybe been fine if you had done that. But I'm very happy that it did, because I don't like those three at all. I didn't want to see them get their way. And especially after a week where Haley was like so adamant that this is the way things need to go, I really like seeing her get knocked down a peg and just kind of have the wind like, taken out of her sails. It's very reminiscent to Brooklyn in Big Brother 26, where like she was so convinced the vote was going to go in this direction. She thought for sure Rubina was gone. And then ultimately Cedric goes. Very similar sort of thing. Brooklyn left last week. I'm not saying Haley's necessarily going to leave this week, but I mean, history does repeat itself a lot in the Big Brother house. So we'll have to see what happens there. But just an amazing moment all around. Lyric's face, you can see how shocked she is in this moment. And again, I think, talking about Lyric right away, again, I really think a lot of this did come down to the fact that I think Lyric just kind of exposed herself a little bit too early on this week. She tried to pivot. It didn't really work out for her. It was too obvious what she was doing. She kind of did the same thing the past 2 weeks. It had worked out for her, but this time around, people just kind of saw through it. And unfortunately, the wrong person, kind of took advantage of the fact that like, hey, I could do this thing. I could kind of keep Melody on my side. I've been saying from the beginning also that like Melody is somebody that crossovers should be keeping with them because of the fact that Melody is so attached to Drew in that way, similar to what they're trying to do with Mallory. But ultimately, I think that it was, the right move to do that. Again, blindside the red corner. I don't know if that was necessary, but again, very happy that it happened because it really just changed things entirely in the house. And in a way that is even more so than what we're going to discuss in this episode, because getting into some live feed stuff real quick, I mean, the mood in the house is completely different now. Dee, Devens, and Angela had such a stranglehold on things, and it really does kind of feel like this move in particular just really kind of exposed them a little bit too soon. And Gaby, I want to hear your thoughts on this. How do you feel about like what the three vets ultimately decided to do with them blindsiding the red corner in the way that they did?
Like, I think Devens played it up well afterwards. Like, he was confused.
Yeah.
Like, he was totally confused about the plan.
Yeah.
Like Dee and Angela trying to lie. I don't know if that was a smart move for either of them.
Yeah.
Like, pretend they were the votes. They were two of the votes for Melody to stay, especially with such short numbers.
Yeah.
For Melody to leave.
Exactly. I think it was the right move to take out Lyric, but I think you could have easily convinced Kamu and Chuk to do this. They say as much throughout the week. And so I think, again, like, they saw the benefit in making this move, but because it happened so quickly, they didn't really think through what they were doing. Again, I really think Dee was just bored and wanted that big TV moment and wanted this chaos to happen. She even said in the feeds, like, she wanted fights in the house and things like that. And that's exactly what's happening. Like, without getting into too much, the past like few days on feeds are so monumental. While I was initially going to talk about in this video, there's not time to do that. Like, there's so much going on. It deserves its own video. So we are going to wait until the next video to discuss everything. But the short version of it is that chaos is very much what we've gotten here. I mean, things are so up in the air. It generally feels like an entirely different season. It also helps that finally we have an HOH that is not someone in Red Corner. It is not someone in Toolshed, so we can finally actually see the game starting in that way. But ultimately, when it comes to, but ultimately, I do think that this has definitely hurt the Vets games a bit. I think that they were kind of in this spot where everybody trusted them. And I think a lot of it was because of someone like a Kamu, Haley, and Chuk, who were just blindly loyal to these three because they had no reason not to be. Now you've made this move so early, their eyes are opened a bit, and it really does kind of seem like maybe things are going to go in a more sort of fluid direction from this point forward. I don't think this is going to be nearly as clean of an outcome for the Vets as they were hoping.
Definitely not.
No.
One of them is going to end up getting picked off. I think Devens might have to use his Diamond Power Veto sooner than he was hoping for.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's definitely what's going to happen. But yeah, like I said, we will discuss more when it comes to next week because we're already delayed as is. And I really just want to wait until next week to discuss all of that. But safe to say, it's been a very good week so far. I think that this week I think this move has fully redeemed the season and taking things in a very different direction that I think a lot of people were not prepared for. And I'm very interested to see how things do end up going for here because there's a lot of directions that this season can go in from this point. And I'm very happy to say that because I was kind of ready to write the season off, Gaby. I really was. I really thought like things were just going in a boring direction. We were just going to see like Melody leave and it was going to be really disappointing. But instead we get to see this massive blindside towards Lyric that didn't necessarily need to happen. But again, I'm very happy that it did happen. And I also think it's probably the most fitting outcome. Like Lyric overplays and gets caught and Red Corner, Kamu tries to protect her. It doesn't work out. Haley puts her on the block. Haley's convinced that Lyric's going to stay and she doesn't stay. It just feels poetic in the way that ended up going. But yeah, other than that, I think that's really all there is to discuss. Like I said, we'll talk a lot more on Thursday with everything that ends up going down. But before we do close things out here, Gaby, anything else you want to plug or anything you'd like to talk about, go ahead and do so.
Nothing really to plug. Just that this season is going to be fun.
Yeah. Should be very interesting to see how everything plays out. But yeah, overall, like I said, that's really it for our thoughts on this week of Big Brother 28. Gonna be very interested to see where things do end up going from here. If you do like this video, I have a ton of other TV movie related content. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely consider checking my channel as well as subscribing. Love to be a part of all of that. Other than that, guys, for this video, hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will see you guys later. Okay, bye.